Good evening. Good evening. I think that your presence here tonight in such great numbers really gives lie to the old expression, a prophet is not recognized in his own hometown. So it's a thrill to have you all here tonight for the opening of this José Bedia exhibition. My name is Tom Collins. I'm director of the Art Museum, and it's a pleasure for all of us to have you. I'm going to introduce our speakers this evening, and before I do, I wanted to acknowledge that many of the works on loan in this traveling exhibition are actually in the collections of individuals here in Miami, and I wanted to single some of them out tonight for your attention and thanks. I wanted to recognize Mr. and Mrs. Percy Aguila, Carlos and Rosa de la Cruz, Carlos and Claudia de la Cruz, Alexander Fernandez and Rita M. Baez, Mireille Shansi Gonzalez, Sergio Leiva, Diane and Robert Moss, Jerome O'Neill, Jorge Perez, and Roger and Mariela Tobar. I also wanted to recognize and thank three individuals who have made it possible for the Art Museum to possess great works by José Bedia, and I believe some of them are here tonight. I wanted to acknowledge and thank the artist himself. I also wanted to acknowledge and thank Peter Menendez and Frederick Snitzer. Fred, thank you very much. And finally, I wanted to acknowledge and thank some of our sponsors. This is, of course, quite an undertaking, an exhibition like this, and there are a number of sponsors that made the exhibition possible here and at the Fowler Museum where it originated. So I wanted to acknowledge that the exhibition Transcultural Pilgrim, 3 decades of work by José Bedia, is organized and produced by the Fowler Museum at UCLA and was guest curated for the Fowler by Judith Bettelheim, whom I'll introduce in a moment. And she was curated, she had a co-curator on that exhibition, Catherine Berlow. The exhibition at the Fowler was made possible with support by provided by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Donald B. Cordray Memorial Fund, and additional support was provided by the Fay Betty Green Fund, the Pasadena Art Alliance, and Manus, which is the support group at the Fowler Museum. The Miami presentation of this exhibition is supported by Macy's Foundation and the Funding Arts Network, and additional support was provided by Artes Miami, Edge Steak and Bar. You may wonder about that one. I can explain it later if you're interested. Mili and Raul de Molina, and Ida Levitan. So I want to acknowledge and thank all of those sponsors this evening. Will you join me? And finally, I wanted to acknowledge that my colleague, Marla Behrens, who is the director of the Fowler Museum, made it in just in time for the opening this evening, and I wanted to welcome her. So Marla, thank you for being here with us. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. José Bedia was born in January 1959, the same month and year that Fidel Castro marched into Havana. He graduated from the Instituto Superior de Arte, and you'll get to hear me go back and forth between French, Spanish, and English here, and it's not pretty, so I'm apologizing in advance. He graduated from the Instituto Superior de Arte and was included in the groundbreaking Havana biennials of the 1980s. He was selected for the exhibition Magicienne de la Terre, held at the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris in 1989, and in 1991 moved to Mexico. In 1993, he immigrated to the United States. He presently lives and works in Miami. Mr. Bedia's major projects include an invitational installation concurrent with the Sao Paulo Biennial and a traveling retrospective organized by the Institute of Contemporary Art, the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, both in 1994, and exhibitions at the Museo de Arte Contemporáneo in Monterrey, Mexico, and Site Santa Fe in New Mexico in 1997, and a major solo exhibition at the Museo de Badajoz in Spain in 2004. In 2011, the Centro Atlántico de Arte Moderno in Las Palmas, the Canary Islands, mounted a retrospective exhibition of Bedia's installations, and his work is in the collections of the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Museum of Contemporary Art Los Angeles, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Guggenheim Museum, and the Miami Art Museum, among many others. I also want to introduce Judith Bettelheim, who was the curator for this exhibition. Judith Bettelheim holds a PhD in art history from Yale University and is professor emerita of art history at San Francisco State University, where she taught from 1980 to 2009. She specializes in the arts of Africa and the African diaspora, with an emphasis in Afro-Caribbean culture. She's received funding for fieldwork and publications from the Social Science Research Council, the American Council of Learned Societies, and the Rockefeller Research Colloquium. In 1998, Professor Bettelheim co-curated and co-authored Caribbean Festival Arts for the St. Louis Art Museum. She is the editor of Cuban Festivals, A Century of Afro-Cuban Culture, published in 2001. She authored Ethnicity, Gender, and Power in Carnaval in Santiago de Cuba, in Negotiating Performance in Latin or Latino America, 1994. And in 2005, she curated the traveling exhibition Afro-Cuba Works on Paper, 1968 to 2003. Finally, in 2008, and you will be familiar with this, many of you, she published Lam's Caribbean Years, an intercultural dialogue in the catalog Wilfredo Lam at the Miami Art Museum. So it is with great pleasure, and it's an honor to have both of them speaking with us this evening to invite the artist and Judith Bettelheim.
A little housekeeping. Whoever has my bag, I forgot to turn off my phone. I don't know where, oh, it's in there. Thank you. This is the director of the Fowler who takes care of me. I am really happy to be here tonight, let me tell you. Yes, Miami. I've got my thank yous also. First of all, I want to thank José Bedia, who I first met in 1994, for his continued cooperation and enthusiasm during the ups and downs of our professional collaboration since then. Of course, both of us want to thank the Fowler Museum at UCLA for sponsoring the current exhibition. Fred Snitzer, where did Fred go? I thought he was going to sit here. Oh, hi, Fred. Fred Snitzer supported our collaborations when he asked me to write an essay for Bedia's exhibition, Mundele Quiere Saber, in 1995. And he assisted me and my co-curator, Janet Berlow, when we visited in 2007 during the early stages of research for this current exhibition. At the Miami Art Museum, Peter Boswell was instrumental in encouraging us to pursue our work on the exhibition. On behalf of the Fowler, I want to thank Tom Collins, the director of MAM, for sponsoring this exhibition. More recently, I have worked intensely and productively with MAM curator Tobias Ostrander. Where's Tobias? Expanding, we worked together. It was really a stunningly intercontinental by cell phone collaboration, expanding the original Fowler Museum exhibition for this venue at MAM. Also, curatorial assistant Emily Vera was helpful, and certainly I offer gazillions of thanks to the lenders who may be here tonight. Without lenders, there would not be an exhibition. I am absolutely delighted that Transcultural Pilgrim has a new temporary home at the Miami Art Museum. I was introduced to Bedia's work during a lecture by art historian Charles Merriweather. I don't know if we do lights dim or not. Oh, okay, thanks. And Charles was with Bedia during this installation at the exhibition Musiciens de la Terre in 1989. I was immediately enticed by Bedia's piece, considered it stunning, especially the way the young artist skillfully merged references to his Cuban religion with a complex experimental installation. By discussing this 1989 installation, entitled He Lives on the Tracks, I intend to explain why we decided to organize this exhibition around the concept of a transcultural pilgrim. He Lives on the Tracks is at once a document of Bedia's first significant transcultural encounter, as well as an exploration of the mixed vocabularies of international artistic practice during the 1980s, reflecting interest in identity, hybridity, and especially for the Caribbean in creolization. In He Lives on the Tracks, altar and installation become interchangeable, thus satisfying the stated criteria for inclusion in Musicien de la Terre. Because of my academic training in Caribbean and African art history, I understood that the large supine figure, it worked, painted resting on an actual iron bar with painted railway spikes, to be a reference to Sarabanda, an important spirit of the Afro-Cuban religion Palomonte. And I knew that Bedia had received Sarabanda in 1983 during his own initiation. The constructed spaces underneath the iron bar recall ritual spaces during a Palomonte meeting house, and each contains a reference to a particular spirit. Each also contains a nganga and a stool so that the spirit can come to rest in the installation. In this installation, Bedia challenged the international art world to accept both his religiously inspired art and the requirements that the exhibition curators imposed. He deliberately designed a contemporary art installation based on conceptual and arte povera strategies, using poor art materials, dirt, sticks, cloth, bricks, etc., while simultaneously creating an autobiographical installation, emerging, there we go, from his own initiation. This brings me back to the concept of the Transcultural Pilgrim. This is Tata Guacochea in Havana. This is the initiating Tata for Jose. And just very quickly, this is Tata Guacochea has passed, but I was able to meet him, and this is his altar house in Havana. Okay. We borrow our term pilgrim from the anthropologist James Clifford, who in 1997 wrote, and I quote, "Pilgrimage includes a broad range of Western and non-Western experiences and is less class and gender biased than the term travel. Moreover, it has a nice way of subverting the modern opposition between traveler and tourist. Pilgrimage can be secular or religious." Recently, in a New York Times article entitled "An Art Critic in Africa" and subtitled "Pilgrim," Holland Carter wrote, and I'm quoting, "For the religious, pilgrimage is a dress rehearsal for salvation. For the art seeker, it can transform a wish list of experiences into a catalog of permanent, relivable moments," close quote. And he continues to recount his journey to Ethiopia, recalling, and I quote, "Pilgrims wearing slacks, sport shirts, and sun hats. They're middle-aged Europeans," close quote. This is not the concept of pilgrim that is alluded to in the title of my exhibition. James Clifford alerted us to a wonderful phrase by Renato Rizaldo, another brilliant anthropologist, and he calls certain pilgrimages deep hanging out. And that is what Bedia does and continues to do. His pilgrimages include a mixture of observation, dialogue, friendship, apprenticeship, and sometimes initiation. In this exhibition, we consider his initiation in the Afro-Cuban-based religion Palomonte as his first truly significant pilgrimage, one that he made in his homeland, Cuba, and as he moved from one space to a very special space that necessitated considerable and frequent deep hanging out with his initiating tata. Jose, perhaps we can begin to understand your pilgrimages and their foundation in spirituality by discussing the Miami Art Museum's installation, Abre Nukuto Muchacho Nuevo. And it is upstairs and you will see it.
Judith, you want?
No, I only need this.
You don't need to take.
Well, maybe. But I do need this.
Okay.
Okay?
She said you're supposed to sit over here.
You want me to-
No, wait, not right.
Oh. Oh.
Just want to make sure your sound is.
And if you can't hear, it's because I should push this mic into my mouth. So, Jose, I thought it would be interesting for you to talk about and I have a close-up of it, right? So I thought it'd be interesting to begin the conversation about your initiation and the foundation that you created in Cuba by telling our friends in the audience a little bit about this installation.
Well, that one in particular is a physical representation of the oral tradition passing from the elder to the young man. So it's like a paternalistic expression of the older who know better than the kid. And he say, listen to me, young man, and you have to follow what I say. So the physical and oral speak, passing like a bridge from his mouth to the ear of the other one. And this is how, in the Congo tradition, supposed to Sambi Munansuru, the main god, spread the knowledge to the mankind, the earth.
So the word he uses, Sambi, the name of the high guard in the Congo religion. I'll just annotate a little bit.
Yeah.
And do you want to explain to them in the title is Nukuto?
And
You wanna
kutu means the ear, and also mean makutu is something wrapped up in a little packet, in a little container, like a gris-gris. They also name it in Africa like a gris. It's a little packet where you can carry with you in your wallet, in your pocket, or hanging in your neck. But it's something secret who had to wrap it up in some material, and the ingredient, the magical ingredients inside.
Right, so here, and you'll be seeing a lot of this in the exhibition, in the first section especially. So the iron cauldron here,
Exactly.
right, is filled. It's a filled sacred pot. And so we're starting out sort of at the very beginning, at the foundation of his work. And there is, ¿qué pasa? And this is also in the, most of the slides that I'm going to be showing you are works from the exhibition itself. So this, why don't, rather than me explain this initiation painting.
Actually, that one is like a self-portrait of myself when I was initiated in 1983. And when they made me the sacred cut in my skin, and they put me the medicine inside me. And so it's a memory of that particular moment. And the ceremony standing from night and day. So that's why one side is the daytime, the other is the nighttime. And the guy holding a cauldron in the hands is like the main Ganga, who's supposed to be the blessing seen on top of him, and also right after on top of his head.
So you'll notice in this one that the pot is empty. And Jose's going to explain, I have 3 slides in sequence here, because filling the pot is the basis for your full initiation. So these are also in the exhibition. So these are the 3. And so maybe you want to talk a tiny bit about what Tata told you to do when you filled your pot?
Yeah, those drawing was made in 1984, 1 year right after I being initiated. So I changed completely my style to represent my own work. So I tried to make it the most simple possible. It's very simple, very basic, with no decoration, almost nothing, just a simple drawing. And the whole idea was like a cartoon strip, representing how the main process was made, to fill up the cauldron with the ingredient, the sacred ingredients. So the ingredient is falling inside the cauldron, and the main nganga is made right at the end.
So there it is, filled. And then one of the things that I've always been fascinated by, especially when I first met Jose and started really looking at his work deeply, one of his signatures as a Bedia, is using historical photographs and feathering them into paintings. So I thought both you could talk about the process that you do to feather the photograph in, and then the relationship of the historical photograph to your own work.
Well, like you say, I always was fascinated with anthropology, so I've been looking in books. The early time when those anthropology was visiting specific areas in Africa, and that picture was taken in the Belgian Congo in the 19th century. And for me, it was very significant because in many of those pictures, you can see the face of the elder who was forced to expose his secret material in front of the camera. So he has like an angry and fierce face, and he don't have any choice just to show what he have. So for me, that picture was very significant. I tried to pay homage to that guy. So I recreated the image in my own style, right on top. And I write it down in my particular style, Nganga Nkisi, what is the main elder of the Nganga.
The Nganga is the name of the pot. And here you can see the pot and then the spirit coming out of the pot. And this one, when you see it upstairs, you'll see that these are, as Jose said, these are all the accoutrements, the liturgical accoutrements that the Nganga man would have. And there's other paintings upstairs, and I want you to look at, as Jose was saying, he chose particular photographs that really tend to show the anguish of these people who were forced to expose their religion to colonial authorities. And I find it a very moving kind of experience. Do you also want to tell them what you do to, I remember you talking.
Yeah, I make a little distortion with the picture, like I try to produce some change on those static pictures from the 19th century. I try to produce some move to make it in the contemporary time, like try to give a chance to those people to express in the present what they cannot express in the past.
Right. Jose once said to me, it's giving life to the past, to showing that the past is not over, that it always comes
It's like
back
giving
again.
a second chance
Right.
to express himself.
So that's a close-up of the collaged image. It's from a postcard about 1909 that was printed in Nancy, France, that Jose, and it's in a lot of good art history books also that he found it. This one I'm particularly interested in, and I've always been interested in it, because you took your Nganga with you when you left Cuba. So do you want to just quickly relate, you don't have any clothes on. The thing that was most important to you was your foundational religion.
Yeah, it was a very traumatic moment for me because I take a decision to leave Cuba forever. So I try to keep it between two lands in certain moment, what is completely utopic or an impractical idea that I was standing between two different territories. So the guy was standing in between two lands over the ocean, and he's carried with his personal belonging. Like in that case, he carried with religious stuff from one side to the other. So you can see the difference between one side, what is the main territory of Cuba, and the other was supposed to be Mexico.
Mexico City, yeah. He went from Havana to Mexico City, 1991. So so that's the first pilgrimage. His first pilgrimage was his encounter with an Afro-Cuban religion, his initiation, and what that is the foundation. The next pilgrimage I'd like to discuss actually began in 1985 when Jose and his very good friend and colleague from Instituto Superior de Arte, Ricardo Bray, visited the Lakota people in South Dakota. And I think it's such a wonderful story that most people don't know. Perhaps you could tell the story of how you and Ricardo went
Yes,
to...
we have a chance to meet this famous Cherokee artist, Jimmy Durham, and we became very friends. And so he convinced me that the best thing what I can do if I am really interested in the Native American culture is to visit the reservation. So he arranged the whole trip for us.
Why don't you tell them who gave you the Rebecca
Oh,
to go?
Klaus Onderbrook paid for us the
Klaus
ticket.
Oldenburg, folks,
His
paid
wife,
for
yeah.
the trip.
He don't even met me in that time, but I met him later, and he reminded me, oh, I paid for your ticket that time. So it was a wonderful thing, you know. But this was a wonderful experience because we are stopping in the house of the famous shaman Leonard Crudock in Rosebud Reservation, South Dakota. And so we get a training in that shamanic practice there in South Dakota in 1985.
So what happened is Jose returns to Cuba and then later on does some drawings that recall this first trip. And I thought it would be interesting to discuss. I have this one, Jose, and this one, to discuss what these mean, because they are his second pilgrimage to the Lakota peoples, and then to go through certain very important ceremonies among the Lakota.
That one is in reference of the sweat lodge ceremony. They performing the ceremony inside a little lodge with stones put in the fire. So it's a sweating ceremony to purify the body and be in contact with the Mother Earth. And the name of that tent is named Initipi. That is a Lakota term.
And then?
And the other one, we concha Onisiye, is the peyote ceremony. So the people are performing the peyote meeting inside the tent, inside the tipi. So in many specific details, and you can see the water bearer there.
Want to show your pin?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the people are looking to the roadman who is giving the direction of the ceremony.
And do you see in both of these, he also has feathered in the reproduction of, this is a James Mooney photograph, but very important early photographs.
Yeah.
That, you know, it really gives life to the present and shows how the present is, how the past is in the present also during these ceremonies, so that, so that during this peyote ceremony, you know, he found, doing his research, Jose has an absolutely incredible library. It's better than many, many university libraries, I assure you. And he does solid research before he sort of ventures into these different worlds and does this art. Then I want to stay with the theme of the Native American for a moment, Jose. So this is the altar as it was done at the Fowler Museum at UCLA. It has been changed a bit here. I would say that it's been helped a bit by being in Miami. So you'll see changes when you go upstairs to see the exhibition. But what I'm particularly interested in, oh no, I didn't want to do that, sorry. What I'm particularly interested in here is El Indio y El Congo, okay? And then, now I'll do it. And then I use this is an installation he did at the Birmingham Art Museum. And again, what I'm particularly interested in Jose explaining to you is here we have in the boat El Indio and El Congo, okay? So El Indio is again the Native American theme of his pilgrimages to Native American peoples. And why don't you explain, want me to go back to the altar or stay on?
That's okay.
This one's
you can
okay?
leave it there. Yeah, the thing is the believers in Cuba pay respect for the spirit of the old slave and the Indian who's supposed to live in the island years ago. And they divided those areas like the Indian Commission and the African Commission. And they always put in the corner of the table, but they are related. So they pay respect for these people who pass away, and it's like a permanent presence of the elders and the ancestor on the altar.
It's sort of interesting. Jose and I have talked about this a lot, and I published an article about it.
Yep. But
people are always saying, but why is it a Plains Indian? And I go, because that's what you can buy in the botanicas, you know? And then also, I've done, and I think Jose and I agree about this, done a lot of research on this, and it's my belief that this Indian figure that we call Indian is actually a feathered masquerader from Congo who wears a circular feather hat, so that when it gets to Cuba, it's reinterpreted as a Native American because feathers mean Native American. So we've talked a lot about it, and it confuses, some people get confused when they see these plaster cast figures, and a Plains Indian, and that's simply the stereotypical image you can buy. So it's sort of the generic Indian, if you will. It's not the Plains Indian.
And also it's related with the Indians from New Orleans, from the Mardi Gras also.
You want to explain that to them?
No, you can explain
I
that.
can explain it? So I don't know how many of you have been to New Orleans maybe you went recently for the big jazz festival, but the Black Indians of Mardi Gras, with their long feather headdresses, represent a very specific aspect of New Orleans culture. Until very recently, it was illegal, listen to this, illegal for them to march with the rest of the crews during Mardi Gras. So they always marched in their own neighborhood. With time, very recently, that law has changed. And there's definitely, and it's, lots of footnotes on this, folks. But basically, there's definitely a connection with the Caribbean, with the feathered Indians from New Orleans. And probably, again, it's Congo. And Bedia's religion, Palo Monte, is Central African Congo. So it's all a really fascinating kind of dispersal, diaspora of those beliefs and that style, basically. I don't know why sometimes it... And then we'll talk about your pilgrimages to West Mexico. And perhaps you want to expound on this one.
Well, this is a fragment of the Holy Week in Mexico, northern Mexico, in Sonora, during the practice what the Yaqui and the Mayo people do around. They mix it up the cult of the Christianity, mix it up with the local practice in the area. So those guys with mass, they follow the tracks of Jesus Christ in the ground. So they performing this in front of the people. It's like an open theater for them inside the church.
So, yeah, that was one of the things I wanted Jose to say, and he said it, is that this is taking place inside of the church, of a small rural church.
They put soil inside the church, and they planting branches, and they make like a little lodge inside. They make like a ephemeral installation inside the church during the Holy Week.
Always the artist, an
Yeah.
ephemeral installation,
Yeah.
right? I love it. But, so Jose goes, he used to go regularly to Semana Santa in West Mexico, but recent events in Michoacan, in that area, sometimes he doesn't go. But you were there this year, right?
Yeah, I've been in Nayarit this year.
In Nayarit this year.
In La
Right.
Sierra Madre.
Yeah. So this is another pilgrimage. And like I was saying in my introduction, these are repeated processes for Jose. It's not just going with your camera and going home and saying, I've been there. You go back and you go back and you make friends and you learn with the shaman, right? It's a true grounded pilgrimage. And then, I love this shot. So this is in Zambia. So this is a more recent pilgrimage, 2006, I believe.
Yep.
Of Jose, I forget the name of your colleague who was painting the...
Benfrey Chitofu.
Yeah.
Benfrey.
Yeah, and he, as I understand it, he was painting one side of the building and you were painting the other.
That was his house, and he
Oh,
was
his
painting the
house.
front side, I was painting the side.
And I said, do they realize they have a Jose Bedia in the middle of a small village in Zambia? But he did go with an important person in his life when they met at in Birmingham at the Art Museum, where I showed you that installation, Manuel Jordan, who has a PhD in African art history. And Manuel did all of his PhD field work in this area of Zambia, and after he and Manuel met, he invited Jose to go back with him. So again, Jose is going to a place that has deep roots in the life of Manuel, and then Jose went more than once, so they now know him there. So perhaps you want to explain. I brought both of these with me.
Yeah, we were there during the before the rainy season, during the Mukanda ceremony. And the Mukanda ceremony is performed for kids. It's like a circumcision ceremony when the kid get a training what they supposed to do when they get in the like adults to take responsibility of the family. And they using a masquerade. They name it makichis. And each character are very important because they try to teach some kind of behave in the kid for the future.
So Jose was there during this masquerade when the young boys were initiated. And in the catalog for the exhibition, we actually have field shots. I'm sorry that I can't talk without my hands. But a friend of Jose's, a collector who's also a very good friend named Alan Varela, went with them, and Alan thankfully had a camera and documented the whole experience. So we actually have, you can see in the catalog, getting ready for the masquerade, the young boys right after their initiation, and sort of the trip that they went on together to this area in Zambia. And then we have, I call it, this is the installation commissioned by the Fowler Museum. Its a newer version is upstairs also, and I call this Looking Toward the Future. Do you want to explain to our audience what this is to you?
Well, it's like a metaphor of somebody who tried to make a definition of his own future, drawing on the wall a line of horizon. And the line started in the big figure who's supposed to be the profile of the island. Can be my country, it can be any other place. And the guy is standing by himself in the middle. He's like a trickster. He's a Wije or a Chicharecu, what is a very important figure from the
Cuban names
Cuban mythology. She's tied by the ankle in the center of the room, so he's moving around. So no matter he's tired, he's able to draw something what he's supposed to do in the future. So he's actually planning his future in front of him, drawing the wall.
And why don't you explain this?
Which one? Oh.
The airplane and then the
airplane is a planning of the trip. So the plane is always in the air. You can see that on altar when the people want to have a trip. They hang in the middle of the altar a boat or a plane. Or in the same way, when they want a house, they put a little house near the altar to asking to have one of those.
Did you all get that in an altar? These
And the color,
miniature things are hung.
The color of the flag is related with the umpungus, the color of the umpungus. So he carried with the color of the umpungu on the flags, on the color flag.
This is not Centilla Ndoki?
Centella Ndoki, but it's also related with each of the umpungu.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it? It's one of the cross-reference spirits within Palomonte. And some of you might know, in English, she has a name called Seven Skirts.
Yeah, I was fascinated basically with the idea of the installation is trying to represent somebody who's drawing the installation like in a frozen moment there, right there. And he's able to continue to draw wherever he can move around. No matter if he's tired, he have a extension with a stick to draw on the wall.
One of the things I always thought about when I saw
it's
this,
like he have a handicap, but he's able to still try to do something, planning something.
He's chained to a certain reality, and he's chained to his past, and yet by reaching out and painting, he sort of carrying on into the future, irregardless of the fact that some forces in his life are chaining him to a certain place. So that's how sort of I've understood this.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think, and there's the Guije, and he's a trickster, and he's smoking a cigar. You all notice that? Because tricksters smoke cigars. And light up, folks. And so he's smoking a cigar, and that again, I keep doing that, I'm so sorry. But it's sort of an interesting way to think about the world that Jose lives in. That, it could be full of tricksters. Mm-hmm. And those tricksters perhaps are secured to certain things in the past, and yet because they're tricksters, they can get around them and do other things in the present and the future. So to me, this is, like Jose said, a metaphor for all those kinds of forces.
And you're supposed to keep it in your side.
Say that again?
You're supposed to keep it in your side.
I think that's it. Yeah. So I hope that we've illuminated some of the exhibition. No. God knows. It's up to you.
Jose and Judith, would you mind taking just a couple of questions? So perhaps 2 or 3 questions, if anyone has one. Please, Kevin.
Thank you for coming here tonight.
Well.
Quick question. I believe you said your initiation was in 82 or 83.
83.
83.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you could just take a moment to talk to us about 1982. What led up to your interest in
Well, in fact, the whole process started in 1976. So it's taken a while. So I had to walk a long road to be accepted in the initiation process. So I had to looking for certain things, certain ingredients. I had to go through certain places. It's complicated. I can explain you that later, but it's taken a while,
I will say one thing, just adding to that Jose was ill, and Western medicine didn't seem to be helping too much. And so he, with his mother's guidance, sought different kinds of medicines. It was a long trip, but in searching for different kinds of medicines, he encountered Tataguacojea.
Yeah, that's right.
How much of your work is still in Cuba? We were there a year and a half ago, and I saw many of your pieces there.
Museum.
Yeah, I left behind all those work. Actually, I've been working at the Museum of Fine Art in Havana. I've been a former worker there. I work at the Department of Restoration. So I have a good recognition during the time where I was living in Cuba, and they included me in the collection of the Cuban artists, for sure. I heard they have some pieces on display now.
You're in a new show at the Biennale right now.
Maybe, I don't know.
No, I know.
This is what I don't know.
I know. I read
Okay.
about it.
One more?
So have you gone back to Cuba or not?
No, not really.
Well,
I was intrigued by what you were saying about the connection of the Native American with certain peoples and practices, costumes, and so forth in Africa. You made some brief reference to part of the New Orleans, the Mardi Gras, that's kept separate. Could you elaborate a little more on that?
It's called racism. I mean, let's be real. People who know me know that I just say things. So what happened was the black Indians of New Orleans come from a certain section of the city, and they have this tradition that's associated with the black church, Black Hawk,
The Black
with the
Hawk
Black
service.
Hawk
Service.
churches, right?
Black Hawk Service, is that the name?
Right. And so what I was just saying is just a fact that only recently were certain of those practices, ceremonial practices, performances, allowed to participate in the Mardi Gras that you see on television all the time. That it was literally, it was segregated. And, you know, you never see that on NBC or ABC, you know? And, but recently, I'm going to guess now 8 years more or less, they have been granted permission. To see them, you'd have to go to their neighborhood. But now they're from what I didn't go to Jazz Fest. If any of you have been to Jazz Fest in New Orleans, they always perform there. So they're now within the scope of the Mardi Gras tradition.
And so the so-called Indians are actually referring to the headdress that you said comes from Africa but resembles Native American Plains Indians?
Okay, so the Black Indians are all Afro. They dress sort of in very, very elaborate costumes that reference feathers and feathers and feather dusters and feathers, right? But ultimately, historically, theoretically, Jose and I have talked about this a lot, the Congo tradition that Jose is initiated into. In Cuba, the Congo tradition in Central Africa, the religious leader wears a headband of bright red feathers and their feather caps. So the whole idea of a performer wearing a feathered headdress has a source in Central Africa. So it's part of the diaspora of aesthetics and religion. Sure.
Jose,
Hi.
is your journey as an artist, is it a history lesson? Are you driven by teaching us a history lesson? Or can you share with us the deeper need that you have making this art?
Well, I always try to share my experience with the public. This is what it's all about, you know, and this is what I try to do. Otherwise, I rather to remain in those places because I love those places, but I supposed to have a responsibility to come back to my family and work here and share with the public what I did, you know. But I always in permanent research those things.
So it's more history lesson.
Yeah, in some way, yeah.
Don't you think it's a little of both? I mean,
Maybe both. I don't think in that way. I do what I do, you know, but I don't clearly think that I want to change something in particular. I share with the people what I learned, and it's like a ritual, how you can say that?
a circle?
A circle of information what I return to the public. So what I try to share is what I learned. I think is something important to show. And something what I always said, I'm looking for certain archetypes, what I try to find in different places and put it together. Sometimes I try to looking for similarities instead of difference. And this is what I do mostly all the time. That's why I relate groups like people from Africa, from people in South Dakota and northern Mexico. I found some kind of syntony, what these people have in common.
That's religious. It's spiritual. What they have, there's the colonial aspect to it. But I remember Jose telling me a story that when after he first met the Lakota in '85, and then when he went back to Cuba, and he brought what they had given him to his Tata, to Guacochea, and his Tata said, and I'm quoting Jose, quoting the Tata, "Oh, they're just like our beads."
Yeah, he said, let me see what they give it to you. The people know a lot. Give me something to me. And the same when I was in Angola, I was sending like a soldier to Angola. He asked me to bring certain ingredients from the motherland in Africa. I said, don't forget to bring me some stone and sticks from the bush. So it's an interchange of ideas and physical material back and forth.
Thank you for your questions, and Judith and Jose, thank you for the program and the exhibition.